Thank you and good morning. We are now live streaming on YouTube and welcome to this meeting of the Landlord Services Advisory Board. My name is Terry Daubney. I'm the chair of the Waverley Tenants Panel and I'm assisted today by our portfolio holders, both on my left and right. So if we could now go around the room and just introduce yourselves. Oh, and just one apology from my point is that Grayson couldn't make it today. Thank you. And if we could start with Janet.
Janet Croker, portfolio holder, housing delivery, and councillor for Farncombe and Cattershall.
Hi, Annie Rhodes, Service Improvement Officer.
Good morning, Sharon Thompson, Service Improvement Manager.
Good morning, Hugh Wagstaff, Head of Housing.
Good morning, Joe Warren, Tenant Involvement Officer.
Good morning, Councillor Andrew Lawton for Farnham and Waverley. Thank you.
Good morning, Jackie Keane for Hazelmere and Shottermill.
Candice Keat, Financial Services Manager and Deputy Section 151 Officer.
Good morning, Rob Stratford, member of the Landlord Services Board, Vice Chair of Tenants Panel and Oxford Ridge Redevelopment Committee.
Good morning, I'm Rod Blackmore, Board Member, Tenants Panel Member and Chair of the Customer Experience Group.
Morning, Dave Madams. I'm only Tenants Panel. Thank you.
Oh, my turn then. Paul Rivers, Councillor representing Binscombe and Charterhouse, and I share the housing portfolio with Janet on my two left.
Thank you very much. Any decorations and sorry, any decorations of interest to everything. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't received any. However, I have got some other apologies other than what you raised. So Annalisa Housen, Julian Hickson, Sally Purcell, John Rabini, Matt Alexander and Adrian Bryan all send their apologies.
Thank you very much. We now move on to the notes from the last meeting. Hopefully you've all had the opportunity and to read the amended notes following our pre-meeting. And are there any questions? No, thank you. And do you agree those notes?
Agree.
Thank you very much. And are there any questions from members of the public?
None received.
Or members' questions?
None received.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on to the Head of Service report from Hugh Wagstaff. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The last month since we last met has been dominated by the inspection by the regulator of social housing. The main task was to actually give a third tranche of documents to the regulator. They were emailed on time, and really what I say in the report, I feel with all our contributions within this meeting, I think we gave the best presentation of the housing service. The next step is a meeting in December, the 6th of December, which is called a gap analysis meeting. They may ask for more documents at that meeting, and then we will hear the judgment hopefully in February. I don't know if anyone's got any questions on that part of the report.
Here, two comments, please. On the item 6, page 9, there's the reference to the housing service intro, the video that the tenant panel members can't access due to a code. And it similarly goes on to the next page as well, where we've got, you can contact here. Again, tenant members don't have that facility to access. It's probably a security type thing, but something we probably need to look to. If just skipping over to the page 11, it's similar with the reports here requesting for, we can look at those reports and click here. That doesn't work for us.
We'll pick up that point up when we present reports next and how we can get access, because we don't want bundles of paper stuff, but we need to come up with another way to get people access to those documents.
Thank you very much.
And just on the video, I think the full video is available on YouTube.
Yes,
I think this is the restricted one, which is the smaller. So, so if anyone cannot get to Steve's story, I think they just need to go onto the Waverley YouTube channel. Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions? Thank you. If we could move to item 7, the same again.
So no, just quickly, just confirm the new corporate strategy. That was the other thing I just wanted to highlight. And there is an event on 3rd of December. So just encourage everybody to attend who can attend, which will be looking at the corporate priority of decent homes and affordable homes. And so I suppose it's just to confirm that housing is a key part of the new corporate plan. And then lastly, we just confirm we have made a bid for the Wave 3 for social housing, Warmer Homes Social Housing Fund. But we can talk more about that if we're successful in our bid. But this would be a big step towards making many of our homes energy efficient. Thank you. Yes, so Matt was going to present this report, but I'm afraid he's not well. I'll just do the report by exception and perhaps take questions. So there's two, so we are working to the plan, and it's all in line with targets and the objectives set, except for 2 areas. We're concerned around still Ian Williams post-inspection process, and we have we're not getting any reassurance that they are following a robust process to do their quality checks. So Matt has written to them formally on that matter. And we still haven't got an implementation date for their new texting system. So again, we've written to them formally saying that this is really, I mean, you members have said this to them directly as well, that this texting system is really important and that we really need an implementation date. So those are the 2 exception items. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions on anything else in the plan.
Jackie.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I do find it very disappointing that that Ian Williams hasn't come back with something more detailed about an late inspection or post inspections, because that's one of the most important things that we need is post inspection, so that we know the work's carried out properly and it's on time or close as near to on time. So I do think that's very disappointing, to be honest.
Yes, I support that comment. I find it incredible based on what I've heard in the last few months and joining this committee, the response from Ian Williams. And I don't know how long you have to keep going when he doesn't respond to what he's committed to. Where do we get to when he just keeps kicking the can down the road? It's a serious concern to me. I also wanted to ask a question about the IT systems, and I noticed that the council are still struggling to recruit to fill that place. Is that correct? Perhaps you can highlight a bit more about that. Thank you.
Yes, so I mean that key role is the change manager role. We've been out to advertise twice for the role. One of Sharon's priorities when she started was to actually review how we can recruit to that role and perhaps look at the job description and perhaps the package, but the inspection has taken over. But in going into the new year, that will be the priority for Sharon to actually look to recruit to that post going forward. But that's been the delay, has the inspection has caused that delay.
Oh, right. So it's not that you can't find that right candidate in the market. It's actually an internal issue which has held it up. Is that right?
We've been out to advert twice, to recruit twice. So we haven't found it. So, there has been a delay. We haven't gone out again because we just wanted to review how we, it's not worth keep doing the same thing. It's to review what we've done so far. Can we do something different? Is the job description right? Are we selling ourselves in the right manner? And that's the thing that we need to look again. So we just held back from that. So yes, you could say it's an internal issue, but I think we could have put another advert out, but we just think that was just wouldn't give any value. So I think the idea is in the new year that we get an advert out, but we focus on the particular market where we think we can find the right person. And I think it's so critical to get the right person as well.
Yes, going on to page 4. Again, Ian Williams, he's late implementing the new texting communication system for tenants. Again, this is vital for the tenants that they have some way of contacting Ian Williams. And it seems to me that Ian Williams is very lax on doing any communication with the tenants whatsoever, because, here we are again asking him what he's doing, how far down the line is he, and I don't know, Hugh, whether you can comment on that, but it's our tenants that we worry about. And I think, he took on the contract and he should be the one that's very much at the front of all this. So I don't know if you can tell us a bit about that, Hugh.
I mean, this is the point of this action plan is for our client side that we're building a case around. Well, hopefully this is an action plan for Ian Williams to improve. But if they don't improve, and we have got the evidence that we've given them the chance to improve, and it's all recorded, then it gives members the opportunity to make a decision. Do we terminate, or do we continue to pursue with the way we do it, or do we need to do something different with Ian Williams? I think at the moment, where this action plan is building up to where if they don't improve, you can start to make those decisions. Because if we don't have the evidence and we don't give them the chance, we're not legally able to terminate that contract. So at the moment, even if you felt I've had enough of this, we haven't got the legal backing to do that. So this is part. I have explained. This is part of this action plan. Has got a couple of objectives to improve Ian Williams, but for us to actually prove that we give them the chance to improve. And if they don't, that's when we can come back to the kind of questions that you're asking. Have we had enough? Do we need to do something else? Hopefully that's clear.
Yes, and I mean, at the last meeting, we went through this and decided this was the best way forward to actually give Ian Williams the chance to improve on what he's done in the past. I mean, it's been abysmal, but we've given him that chance. But of course, on the other hand, it's very difficult to find contractors. If we were to terminate the contract, then we've got the awful position of going out again to find somebody else. And so I agree, it's good to give him a chance to improve what they're doing. And obviously, if this doesn't work, then yes, you would have to be looking at what else we can do. But it's difficult, and I understand that. So I'm pleased that there is some yellow in here and there's some completed in here, which is good. There's only 2 that are actually red. So it seems to be working, but very, very slowly.
I'd like to suggest, can we not put a deadline by which we can make a decision? Otherwise, we'll be talking about this every meeting ongoing for the next few months. There must be, have you taken any legal advice in terms of how long it takes to build up enough evidence to say that we can make a decision legally?
I mean, it'd be hard for a solicitor to actually say the amount of time. They, as I say, they've given us an indication, the kind of information that we require. I think it'd be hard to give a date now that when we can come back to give that decision. I think it might be something I need to talk to Paul and Janet about what you suggested and what that would look like. I think we can't really give that commitment today around that. And I did talk about sometime in the spring, but perhaps, as I say, we probably need to take this out this meeting and come back to the next meeting with a response to what you're asking. I don't know if you agree with that, Paul.
Yes, absolutely. I think one of our key issues that we have to get is an evidence-based case, which obviously takes a little while to build up. Bearing in mind that we have something like 1,000 responsive repairs every month that are going through, and we have, actually remind me, Hugh, how many cases do we actually review a month? Do we look at, or Ian Williams are looking at 10%, is it?
Yeah, sorry, we also post-inspect 10%. So we're expecting them to post-inspect at least 10% as well.
Yeah, I think one of the areas that I would look to focus on in the shorter term is to see to what extent we can double check Ian Williams' reviews of their own cases, and if possible, look at increasing the number of checks that we ourselves can do. Now, that would be a headcount issue and something that we can look at next year. But I think if I go back to my early life in sunny Swindon, where my uncles would be telling me in the Great Western Railway, when the inspectors came round wearing their little bowler hats, you jumped. And I think we need to recognise that it is our responsibility to make sure that the repairs are done in a proper way. We contract that because we have to in the current way, but we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We have to look at doing as much confirmation of quality and timeliness of repairs that we can do. Jackie.
Thank you. I just want to say that I think it's absolutely right to be building this evidence sort of based case regarding Ian Williams, and it does seem to be moving in the right direction. But I think the other side of the coin that we should also be monitoring, and I'm sure you are monitoring, is what effort is it taking and resources it taking in terms of staff to keep their nose to the grindstone. Because that too has that's a really big issue, and it might be that we do actually get them up to snuff, but at what cost? And that is the other side of it, isn't it? Because it might be that that's another reason why we say, well, okay, we've got them where we need to, but goodness me, it's taking such massive resource, disproportionate resource, that you also put that into the pot, I think, to be, looking at potentially changing contractor when the time comes, if the time comes.
I mean, yeah, just confirm we put additional resources in to manage the contract, and we shifted resources to focus on this contract, which should be those staff could be doing other things for tenants. So yes, I agree. So I think if we can perhaps review where we are in the new year, speak to Paul when perhaps a target, and Janet a target date when they think we should be aiming to make a thorough review where we are with Ian Williams. But I imagine for me myself, it would be later into the spring. But let me talk to Paul and Janet on the meeting. Perhaps we can come back in the January meeting on that point. Is that okay?
Can I suggest at the next meeting, there is a date proposed so that we can make a decision? Thank you.
I think that might be a little early, but in terms of coming, I mean, there are a number of options that are open to us, none of which are short-term, really. I mean, there's the potential to increase our own work staff, even thinking in terms of doing some of the repairs ourselves. That's an area in which we talked about that in the past. The difficulty, of course, of having two groups doing repairs and deciding who's where. I'm very much of the opinion that we need to do more checks, more direct involvement with our tenants, because I believe one of the key issues here is that our tenants don't get in touch with us early enough when there is an issue. They work directly with Ian Williams or Smith and Byford to let's say, rebook an appointment. We don't hear about the fact that they've rebooked an appointment. We don't really hear until it starts to go really wrong that there is a problem. It would be really good to have a better interaction from Ian Williams in terms of when they change appointments, so that we are much more clear on what is happening. But I mean, this council has gone through a change of contractor, and Ian Williams is a result of that, when the previous contractor decided that they didn't want to do the work anymore. So I think we know the difficulty in moving forward.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I mean, the thing is, it's this ongoing business with Ian Williams of non-communication with Waverley, when they, as you say, when they change appointments, when they don't make appointments. And I think that this is something, you know, for Waverley, it's a staffing cost to keep them up to speed on things, because if they're not doing their job, Waverley, the housing team, have to be chasing them. And as Janet said, it is a cost to us. I mean, I agree they should have a deadline, but I think maybe we're a bit early on that. So I think that's something that Hugh will be looking at. And once that deadline's been given, I think if they can't come back, then things have to be looked at. But it's a long old process, and it's shocking, really. But having been on this council before, a long time ago, when we had contractors, and they, to be honest, they a lot of them were just as bad as this. I think you would agree with that there was always problems with the contractors, and that is just, you know, so bad. But I would question, and I did ask at the last meeting, I do question whether Williams have taken on too many contracts, and they're trying to juggle all these contracts, hence why they don't get the work finished.
Thank you. Yes, and I think from this board, really, it's us encouraging the managers and officers to keep the pressure on with Ian Williams, and I'm sure they are doing and will continue to do. I'd just like to raise one particular issue, is that at the tenant satisfaction survey that I attended a week or so ago, there was a suggestion that the tenant satisfaction reading of 90% was too high and it was not achievable. Now, this came from the people supplying the survey information, and that we should consider reducing that level from 90 down to another figure. I felt that that's not right, and I would actually say that the tenant panel, and hopefully this board, would not support changing that figure to a lower level until some form of satisfaction level is achieved by Ian Williams at a higher level consistently, so every month, before we can look at supporting any lowering of the standard.
Yes, it seems slightly cheeky, doesn't it, to want to go changing the goalposts halfway through, or whatever we're doing. I mean, certainly in my past experiences, when you're trying to collect data, it is not helpful to suddenly start mucking about with your parameters. So I think even if we decided it might be a good thing in principle to reduce the targets for whatever, I'm not sure we should just randomly doing it in a sort of higgledy-piggledy manner.
Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Crowe. I don't think we should be touching that at all. I'd also like to remind the people here that this issue was raised at the last ONS meeting, and there was another issue raised in terms of whether Waverley Borough Council should, where the absolute ownership of this issue lies, because we seem to be bouncing around between getting information from Ian Williams and Waverley, and I know there's some issues there, and I'm not sure if we're actually focusing on the right thing. So there was certainly a suggestion made, I think it was like Councillor George Murray at the last meeting, where we should consider owning more of the customer service issue within Waverley. I can't remember where we got to on that, but I don't know, Hugh, whether you have any comment on that.
So I'm not quite clear on your point, but I think just to emphasise, I mean, responsibility for the delivery of the contract is with me and with the team. And in terms of complaints and complaint handling, the Ombudsman is quite clear. We can't pass that over to the contract. Again, we're responsible for that. But in terms of what one of the challenges is that the customer services team take the repairs and they're not within housing. So we've sort of freed sort of different teams. I suppose 4, because then Ian Williams have also split it because they've got their local team and then they've got the hub who take calls. So we've got sort of 5 different points of contact for this issue. I don't know if that's the point you're getting at. And I think that does need to be reviewed in about, for both Ian Williams and perhaps our side, is about streamlining that. Who is ultimately responsible? Because as I say, there's a customer services team, which is managed by another assistant director and et cetera, et cetera. So that is one of the challenges, I think. I mean, I don't think it's the root, perhaps it might not be the root cause of all the issues, but it is something that does need to be resolved when we look to go to a new contract, I think. I hope I've answered your point.
Yes, thank you for that. I think probably you've answered some of the issues, is that information and responsibilities come from 5 places, which means 4 people can always blame somebody else. And it always slips through the net. With reference to the Ombudsman, we have to follow the requirements that they've laid down, but it doesn't stop us from putting in a much higher bar than the Ombudsman, I think, was requesting. And this was certainly raised at the last discussion. So the level 1 and level 2 complaints issue, we need to follow their definitions, but it doesn't stop us imposing our own higher levels. Thank you.
Just very quickly, this is something that we identified, Councillor Rivers and I, when we actually met with customer services, and I don't remember when that was, a few months ago, wasn't it? And Hugh is very aware that there is a sort of balkanisation, if you like. I mean, we completely own customer services, is Waverley, but there is a sort of balkanisation really, where you do have not everything is completely joined up in the way we would quite like. And I know Hugh and the team are very much aware of that, and it is definitely something that needs to be addressed in due course. And it doesn't help either that, you know, they're not particularly well joined up with Ian Williams. So there are gaps, there are breakages in the whole sort of, you know, circle, but at least we know about it.
Thank you. I'd just like to confirm this particular survey is from tenants that have had work done, and it's from an outside organisation that contact them normally on the day that it's been completed and ask these questions. So that's where that satisfaction standards come in from, and that's direct from tenants. So we'll now move on, but I'm sure that many notes have been taken, and that they'll come back to this next board meeting. Thank you. Yes, Jack.
Yeah, I think it would be quite good if we could note our thanks to Hugh and the teams for all the work they do, because, you know, we come here and moan about things that need doing. And frankly, you know, you and all the teams, they're working hard to achieve everything. So I'd like to say thank you to them.
I'd like to second that. Thank you very much to you and your team.
And I'm sure we all agree. Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 8, tenant engagement, and Joe is about to run us through that.
Yep. So this is a report on the tenant engagement activities and outcomes from Q1 and Q2 of this year. I'm really looking for feedback on what people want to see in the tenant engagement strategy, what activities people want to see in the tenant engagement strategy from 2025 to 2028, and also feedback on the format of this report and how it is to be delivered to the group so that it's most useful. Rather than go through them chronologically, so in this report there are 4 basic categories. We've got formal tenant engagement, which is the tenants panel and the customer experience group, tenant events that we've held, tenant surveys, and then also some work that the communities team does. They do a lot of tenant engagement work. So I expect this report to sort of increase as more housing managers start reporting their activities in future reports. So that will be the next one, week Q3 which we reported in January. So some highlights of engagement. In terms of our formal engagement, I think some of the highlights have been the ongoing discussion around bolstering our formal groups, incentives, and the planning of a major recruitment drive that began on Saturday. I think Terry will speak about that a little bit later on. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then secondly, their input into the performance dashboard, which is coming up later as well in this meeting. So our events, probably the highlight in terms of the events we've held, and this is Q1 and Q2, so not including Saturday's event, probably be our focus group with HQN, feedback from which informed a part of our response to the regulatory inspection. So it was really valuable. And then communities, so there's the constant engagement that the communities team does, and collaborating with tenants to create solutions, especially around the blocks, and great commitment to planting works as well, which and the feedback from that is great, and it suggests that it instills a real sense of pride in people's communities, the orchards and the planting work that the communities team is doing. So again, really what I'm looking for is feedback on this report in the agenda pack, and how that is to be presented to you, and then the activities that you'd like to see forming part of our tenant engagement strategy over the next 3 or 4 years.
Joe, can you just remind me how the 4 or 5 locations across Waverley are where tenants from specific areas are 4 towns, if you like, how their tenant involvement events work? I'm going extremely around the bend here.
No, I
basically,
yeah.
How do you meet with tenants? Basically?
So every year we have hosted 4 events, one in each kind of major town or village in the borough, in-person events that were sort of drop-in events, and that's changed slightly this year in that we're starting to look at our strategy moving forwards, and that we want that to be well, with input from tenants. So there was some great, very valuable input on Saturday as well around that. More frequent tenant engagement events all over the borough, and kind of the other thing that's been really important is the time of the meetings and the day of the meeting. So the tenants panel currently meets at the Berries monthly on a Thursday morning, which is really inaccessible to a lot of people, and that was some of the feedback that we got on Saturday. So the plan really that will, and I'll take this as probably also feedback into the tenant engagement strategy, is that strategy has to include a way to be in each part of the borough, because it's a big borough and it's difficult to travel across, and also be able to meet remotely for people that works for, but just basically diversifying the way that we meet with tenants, such that those the barriers to engagement are levelled to as low as possible, and that anyone that wants to engage can engage.
Yes, that's one thing that I was concerned about, because when you look at some of these, there's so few that attend. But I suppose really part of this could be due to the fact that our tenants are, you know, some of them are still working late into life, and so they may be not able to attend, as you rightly said, the morning meeting. So I think it's really good that we expand the idea of remote meetings and Saturday morning meetings and what have you, or even evening meetings, because the more we can get to engage, the better it is. So I'm really pleased to hear what you're doing there. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, just to answer those questions really in one statement, but the tenants panel currently have 5 active members, and when you look across the borough where we have nearly 5,000 homes, and we struggle to keep those 5 people active. And we urgently need more members to continue to provide this engagement that's required under the Social Housing Act. But last Saturday, Tenants Panel, with support from the officers, we held a recruitment event at St Mark's, targeting tenants that had previously shown some interest in engagement. And following a short presentation by myself and some follow-up from Joe, we had a long discussion with them, looking at really the obstacles of tenants becoming involved. And strangely enough, the evening meetings were not supported. But we did have 18 people attend that showed a lot of interest in what we're doing. Really didn't know that we had all this was going on. And we actually have 9 that have agreed to come to our next panel meeting next Thursday. And we're hoping that we can keep those 9, but a lot of the others were showing interest in supporting in other ways, even if they couldn't attend meetings due to work. One of the things we did do was immediately that there was a suggestion that a 10 o'clock meeting in Godalming is too early because they can't get by bus to Godalming for 10 o'clock, or to go, particularly those that use the bus pass, because you can't use it until 9:15, and that's therefore difficult. So immediately we've changed to an 11 o'clock meeting. But there didn't seem to be too much issue about the day meeting. We had the younger members that had turned up and said that they were quite happy to do that, particularly because they were, you know, in the school period, so which was useful. And we found that we talked about the use of Zoom or Teams and that technology, and that was quite supported. So very hopeful that you know, at least in the early part of next year, we can double the numbers of tenants, but we do need to increase it even more. So if you see anybody or meet anybody that's interested, push them our way. You know, we'll take them, we'll use them, we'll find a way. If it's not at the tenants panel, there's the customer experience group, and just reading papers, these papers that come in front of us, and you want tenants to comment on. So yeah, a successful day, and thank you for the officers for supporting us. Janet.
That sounds really a good day and a great outcome. I just want to say I completely agree that we need to diversify as much as possible the opportunities to get engaged. And certainly whenever I've tried to get engaged, get a particular group of people, whatever it is, engaged, it's been usually pretty essential to move around the place, to go to them often, you know, to go to where we think people are going to be and engageable, rather than just sort of sitting on a mountain waiting for people to come to us. So I'm very, very keen to look at opportunities to move the meetings around the borough. I know that's, and I think Saturdays probably are a good time. Certainly 10 o'clock's far too early for bus passes and indeed just general life. Coming to meetings isn't often the first thing people have to do in their lives. And I think, yeah, diversify it, technologically as well. And I will put my money where my mouth is, and I'm more than happy to turn up to different places in the county, in the borough as well, if should that be required.
Thank you very much. Yes, and we in the past have held open meetings across the 4 areas, but it tended to the COVID thing again, it dropped away, and we really need to bring those back in. But it's yeah, really pleased with the result of Saturday, and I'm hoping that you know, next year I'll have lots of people to talk to. Thank you. Yes, Jackie.
Can I just ask on page 2 of it? It's page 20. The customer experience group, they requested an update on the damp and mould backlog. Have we got anything on that?
In the papers.
Yeah, I reported back on that, I think in, I can't remember which month, but it was at Landlord Services Advisory Board that was updated.
You may tell me you've answered this as well. There's a comment about in block inspections when you were talking that you met some customers or tenants in Roman Way about concerns about ASB and ball games, and you put up a sign which says no ball games. Did that resolve the problem? Is that just give me an idea about ASB and whether you've got the right ways to try and help on that?
Yeah, I would have to come back to you on that one, as I wasn't personally involved in that piece of work, but I know that all of the work that this team is doing is kind of in collaboration with the residents that are in the area. So it was at least sort of requested by people in the area that happens. I'm not sure of the outcomes though there.
Thank you very much. So thank you, Joe. We'll now move on, please, to item 9. And Candice is going to talk about this subject of the quarterly reports and financial report.
Thank you. Yes, on to the interesting stuff, finance. So the report we've presented today includes both Q1 and Q2 for 24-25. I'm going to focus on Q2 today. I've presented Q1 just so you've got that information and you can track how we've performed through the year. So in terms of the overall on the HRA, when you look at the bottom line, it looks great because we're forecasting savings of 1.8 million in the HRA. However, that's not necessarily a good news story. So what that's predominantly made up of is an overachievement in rent income. What that doesn't mean is us taking additional money off of tenants. That's not happening. What it is due to is when we set the budget at the beginning of the year, we make some assumptions in terms of new builds, demolitions. Sorry, I'm not in the main pack. Bear with me. Yeah, so I'm just talking over it at the moment. I'm not on a general page at the moment, but thank you, Hugh. Yeah, page 41. Thank you. Where was I? So yes, so at the beginning of the year, we make a number of assumptions when we set the rent levels, and that includes new builds, demolitions, and right to buys. What we've seen during 24-25 and 23-24 is a real big drop in those right to buy sales. So we'd assumed about 20 per year. Last year, we only saw 8. So that means less income coming out of the HRA. So in terms of monetary, it's good news. The HRA is retaining that money because we're retaining the stock. We've then got vacancy savings forecast. So they total across HRA and regeneration, they total £380,000. So again, not a good news story. It's not that those posts aren't needed. As discussed earlier, some of them are hard to recruit posts. And following on from that, the big chunk of this savings is around £900,000 on the orchard upgrade. So obviously we can't deliver that because we haven't got the resource in to deliver it. So it's not made up of particularly good news. There's some resourcing issues and some delays. But overall, they are managing their budgets very well, staying in budgets in all areas, and we're not seeing big overspends. In terms of control, it's really good news. Budget managers are managing their budgets incredibly well and making savings where possible. What we've also got contained in this, so on to the next page, is new development forecasts for the year. So we've got a number of large schemes that the team are working on currently, including Oxford Ridge and Chiddingfold sites. And the forecasts here are showing some slippage in terms of performance this year. So we're looking at around a £5.9 million saving. All of that will need to be carried forward into 25-26. Predominantly that's due to contract delays and delays signing contracts, etc. Those schemes are all going to be delivered. It's just a slight delay in terms of what we initially thought. And we've also got a forecast for the other capital spend within the HRA. So that's kitchens and bathrooms and all those types of spends. There are some savings of there totaling £880,000. Again, all predominantly made up of works that are going to need to be carried forward. So it's not that we're not doing those works, it's that we don't have the resource or there are other issues that mean we can't do those works this year. What we've also included in this new report for you is a reserves position for the HRA. So again, apologies, I don't have the page number, but down the page slightly. So have you got it? Sorry, here. Oh, okay, thank you. So in terms of the reserve positions for the HRA, I'll talk through just a brief overview. We'll go into more detail on the reserves when we get to our budget setting discussion, but just so we've got a basic understanding of what these reserves mean. At the top, we've got revenue account balances. So these are effectively working balances for the HRA. What we, as an organisation, have set is a minimum balance level of £2 million for that reserve. And that's the amount that would be needed if we were to suffer any sort of financial crisis, anything major happened that we would need to keep the HRA going. So at the beginning of this year, we had £6.2 million in those reserves. Over the next 2 years in the business plan that was reviewed back in February, we are going to spend a big chunk of those reserves and bring it down to the minimum level of £2 million. And that's in the next two to 3 years. The major repairs reserve is used to fund the major repairs works on our homes effectively. So there will be a little bit remaining in that at the end of the year, but that will be used in the following year to carry out a number of works. That's not saying that our major repairs total 1.4 million. They don't. They total closer to 10 million. But we top up that reserve throughout the year and use that reserve throughout the year. Uninsured losses reserve is an important one. That's there to cover anything that's not insured in terms of any damage we have, any fires, etc. New development impact reserve. So that's the reserve that's used to help fund the delivery of our new build homes. So we'll be using a chunk of that. Again, that's not to say that all of those schemes are only going to cost £19 million. This fund is used to offset the impact on the HRA from borrowing costs. And then we have a couple of capital receipts reserves from right to buy sales. Those are going to reduce going forward with the news on the right to buy discounts, etc., that have come out in the latest autumn statement. So good news is we can retain and use 100% of those right to buy receipts, but we are going to see far less coming in is what we predict. We then have a couple of reserves there for grants, all of which will be used up. It's just delays in using them. And the reserves at the bottom and this is here just purely so if anyone was so inclined, they could match this back to the financial accounts, statement of accounts. I'm not sure if anyone reads through those other than me, but if you were, those are our unusable reserves, can't be touched, are all accounting entries, but it just means that the bottom line comes back to our set of accounts that we publish annually. And then lastly, we've got an update for you on debt. So the HRA debt is not in a great position. We've got £550,000 of outstanding debt. And the big concern is £284,000 of that is over 1 year old. That's not what we would want to see at all in terms of debt. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. It's recognised that that's work that needs to be done. And I know that recently Housing have got somebody back into the income officer position. So we can hope that they can start working towards bringing that debt level down. And the finance team are also developing a new strategy for debt as well, so we can really focus on this in the coming quarter. So that is an overview of the HRA finance, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you.
Yes, on the right to buy, it seems like it's kind of like a chicken and egg, really, because you're going to lose money by people not buying their homes. But on the other hand, the good side is that we're retaining a council house. So, you know, it swings and roundabouts. But as I understand it, there was quite a reduction in the percentage that was reduced that people wanted the right to buy. So do you foresee it going down much further, Denise?
Yes, so yeah, it's a difficult one to weigh up. We want to keep our stock, obviously, but without those receipts at the moment are used to fund 40% of our new delivery. And those new homes are obviously incredibly nice homes and energy efficient homes. So it's a difficult one to balance. Yeah, so I think the discount went down to 30%. Or something like that, but it's Hugh can probably add to what.
So I mean, it's the cap. So the cap you could get £102,000. That's now the cap is reduced to 38,000. So it's quite and most people get the cap because I think you get the cap. You can get to the cap after 3 to 5 years being a tenant. So most people were getting the 102 discount. So now 38 is quite a significant drop, and so like psychologically also also probably practically it would be harder to get a mortgage. But yeah, so it's very hard to predict as Candice says. We already had a drop probably because of high interest rates, etc. I just really think it is going to be a trickle going forward, and then the government's also looking for more restrictions any case because I think it was last week they put out a paper to actually restrict right to buys even further. So I think it will be a minimum. We're probably budgeting next year should budget about around 5 completions, but we'll see. Although we might have a spike this year because we did have a number of people put in applications just before the cut-off period, which was 21st of November. That's when the cap reduced. So I think that's been a big move. I think it's been quite quietly done, but that is a significant thing that the government has done.
Sorry. The other thing was, one of the residents asked if there was going to be a replacement doors and windows coming back because she was promised doors and windows 3 years ago, and then the contract was terminated for it, as I understand. And so I've been asked this from residents.
I'm afraid there is no programme next year for windows. It's the year after we're going to have a big programme of windows for a number of years. I think we've put in £1 million going forward. So next year, I'm afraid there is no spend, but it's the year after. We could probably talk. We've got this finance day in December. We could talk more in detail about how the works that we're planning over the next 5 years, perhaps. But so yeah, there's no window programme for next year. Yeah, just on Candice's point about the debt. So this is non-rent debt. This is other debt, particularly leaseholder debt, etc. So again, part of the issue has been recruitment to this post, but because of Candice's highlighted this, I've got 2 agency people in to actually start working on this debt, and so we should be able to come back at future meetings how we're progressing or how they're progressing on reducing this level of debt. And I think we need to review. I think we're going to review, in the medium term, how we're going to manage debt going forward. So I think this is issue just not in housing, but will be across the council how we manage this kind of debt. So we can give you feedback at future meetings on this area because it is, as I say, it is a matter of concern. It is an awful lot of money, and we just need to give you reassurance that we are taking measures to collect it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you, Candice. And I'd just like to reconfirm that budget setting training we're going to have on the 11th of December here at 1:30, and it's for tenant panels, but I'm sure that any other members here are welcome to join.
I mean, yeah, I think that was the point. I wanted to get reassurance whether the members of this board have all been invited. So so I don't, have you had invites for the meeting? No. So we'll pick that up. We'll ensure all the board members get invites as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So item 10 now, housing performance, and that's back to Hugh again.
In the pack, you had the information up to October, which I presented at the last meeting. So I'm not looking to go through that. But here I've got up-to-date figures on the critical areas. And we'll quickly run through these. The first one is complaints. So this is at the 27th of November. So we're still turning around the complaints within 100% so far in November, which reflects October's performance. I think just to reconfirm, this is just one small step in our complaints handling. Yes, the transactional part is very important, but there are other parts in terms of complaint handling, that we're resolving complaints, where people are satisfied with the whole complaint process. But I think this is a KPI, and I think it is a positive achievement, and it's to reflect that. So 100% on complaints, and as I say, I think the quality of our responses are also improving. Thank you. Ombudsman, we'll just confirm we've still got just 2 notifications received from the Ombudsman. Which I know we've got still quite a way through to go through the year, but that is a lot less than we had. Seems to be, hopefully, the projection is a lot less than we had last year. So thank you. So responsive repairs backlogs. So we've split it between minor works and responsive repairs, but they all should be seen as one in terms of the contract. But the minor works are more complex works, i.e. more than one trade. So they've still got, William's still got 131 minor work jobs over 131 jobs that are over 28 days. And then they've got 186 that are just responsive repairs over 28 days. So they've still got some way to clear this backlog still. Yeah. In the compliance, the information hasn't really changed, and there's nothing particularly to highlight that's particular concern. We've got programs to clear any backlogs, in specifically the electric certificates. We've got a program to clear those by the end of the financial year, and we've set up a monitoring group to monitor that and other key areas like the water risk actions, etc., the smoke alarms. So we'll be able to give you progress reports to the end of the year on those key areas. So where we're on the column where they were non-compliant, as I say, we've got a monitoring group to ensure that we get those all compliant by the end of the financial year. Next one. And as I say, we just confirm. So when we do either a fire risk assessment or water risk assessment, there's a number of actions that can arise from those actions. And here are the actions that are still outstanding from those risk assessments. And the key one, which I've highlighted in previous meetings, is the water safety actions that we need to be done. And again, we're monitoring those to ensure that they are completed by the end of the financial year. Thank you. And those are the ones I wanted to highlight that so far, and that's our up-to-date position in terms of those. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Andrew.
Thank you, Hugh, for that. I was looking at the information, which obviously in the pack, which is the end of October, and now great to see you've got the end of November. What would be really helpful is we can see it in historical timeline rather than a snapshot, which doesn't really help me because I don't know if it's getting worse or better. Can we do it in a graph form or a RAG something? I don't know how far back the information goes. I suspect you're just starting to build a database now, but I don't know how far you have that.
How far would you like to go back? Should we go back perhaps from September? Would that be?
Well, I think we just need to have a reassurance that things are getting better. So probably if you've got information for 6 months, that would be great.
Yeah.
If you got it for a year, that'd be even better, because it just shows statistically which way we're actually going. And I can see that you're definitely getting on top of a lot of issues, which is great to see. But I like to see it in context of historically.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll be able to do that. As I say, this was a project that we've been developing over time, so I think all those suggestions are really good. Whatever you require to scrutinise us, we ensure you will get.
Well, I think pretty pictures are pretty good because you can absorb information much quicker with the numbers actually, so that will be helpful. And dare I say it, I don't know whether you put any RAG systems on this or whether you are planning to in terms of what your targets are. Some are easier to define as a target and some are more contentious.
We'll do that as well. I know Councillor Rivers likes a bit of RAG, so we'll get that implemented.
Thank you. And I've seen reports that go back for 2 years, so that's interesting to look at it, how it's not changed. It's gone up and down, but it's not changed. And it wasn't good at the start. Thank you. Any further questions?
Just one from me. Just referring to the stock condition report, which on my papers is on page 59. The percentage of homes with energy performance certificate band C certifications, band C and above, is best part of 70%. Our target for 2030 is for this to be 100%. So I think it's worth bearing in mind that there's a good bit in there. You know, 70% of our houses are C and above, yet 30% are not, and that does seem a very doable, at this stage anyway, a doable target. We're not going to stop at C either, presumably. You know, we will endeavour to do the best we can at the time. My question to you, Hugh, is from the stock condition survey in the last 2 years, is there any systemic issues that have come out of that we are planning to address? You know, sometimes in times past, we would have built 20 houses all in one place, all at one time. Is there anything coming out of that that says we've got the same things to do in particular areas?
That's the work that Katie Riley has been doing, and you see the cost of it in terms of the wave bid, where we're looking for £3 million match funding to £6 million just to do was it 300 odd properties. So that is our first step towards getting that towards the 100% by 2030. And I think we were looking to discuss this a little bit further in more detail in this budget away day, because Katie's going to come along and talk about this in more. But basically, the baseline figures she's talking about is for each property to get up to C, that we need to get up to C, is around £10,000. And that's, if I remember, Candice, that's something we've not put in the business plan, that meeting that total target. I mean, I think we've recognised that we need government funding to even achieve the C. I mean, the new homes that we're building, or the retrofits, 7 at Oxford Ridge, they've been given an EPC A, but you know how much we spent to get to that A. So that's the challenge, and I think we'll be talking more about that in December in the Finance Day.
No further questions? Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the final item, really. Item 11, and that's back to Hugh again. Oh, sorry to do that. Thank you.
Be aware in December there is no formal meeting, and you do have the budget setting workshop, which we will ensure that all members of the board have been sent an invitation to. So that will be the opportunity to, as we've suggested today, to look further into the HRA budget and to discuss the challenges and the priority spending. Moving forward, you have been provided with this forward plan. We do have a number of items for January, February and March. In January, we will start to look at the next financial year and the items that you would like to see. I suppose this report is for you to note and also for you to comment on the different areas that you would like us to bring to the board in terms of areas of concerns or priorities for yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and I think it's important to note that we can bring items of interest or concern to the board and should do. Thank you. So, as was said, our next meeting won't be until January. Now, I've already looked at the diary, but I believe that to be the 30th of January, which would be 10 o'clock here, unless we think that that's too early. But it'd be nice to see you all there, and any of you that are passing the door on the 5th of December, the Tenants panel meeting with some of our new members, please. No, this is the tenant panel meeting on the 5th of Thursday, the 5th of December, where we'll have all our new members, hopefully, come dropping in to say hello, and it'd be nice to see you. Thank you. Now close the meeting.